Well, welcome to the Science Museum of Minnesota on this lush spring morning. I know this was not the weather we were hoping for. Yesterday was quite the ideal day. But I have to say, I just came back from a conference on climate change and met a number of people who would envy our cool, wet weather. My name is Patrick Hamilton, and I'm the Director of Global Change Initiatives here at the Science Museum of Minnesota. And after several months of planning and preparation, it's exciting that the St. Paul EcoDistrict placemaking workshop is now coming to fruition. A lot of folks were involved in the planning and preparation. I first want to acknowledge the St. Paul Riverfront Corporation under the leadership of Patrick Sieb, which reached out and drew in the renowned Dr. Richard Jackson and the highly regarded Gale Studios to provide their insights and thoughts, not only to our placemaking workshop taking place today, but many of them that have taken place across the Twin Cities in the last several days. I also want to recognize Jody Petrich, a contractor to the St. Paul Riverfront Corporation, for all of her work handling all the logistics, not only of our, yes, thank you, Patrick, handling the logistics not only of our workshop, but of the many workshops taking place. And a warm appreciation to my fellow planners, Nina Axelson and Lisa Eng-Sarn and Danae Batt from Evergreen Energy. And we also have Amanda Lovely here from Public Arts St. Paul, and Damien Goebel from Smart Trips, and my colleague at the Science Museum in Minnesota, Robert Garfinkel. And a special shout out to Amy Sparks, the artist who generated that lovely graphic on the wall over there. So as a precursor to our placemaking work today, the whole team was out on Kellogg Plaza a week ago, dodging the rain, and handing out free coffee to people passing by and asking them what they wanted to see in the St. Paul EcoDistrict. I'm especially pleased that the Science Museum had the opportunity to host and participate in today's workshop for a couple of key reasons. One of them is that the Science Museum is pursuing the development of a major traveling exhibit about the past, present, and most importantly, the future of our cities. We want this exhibit not only to engage millions of people as it travels around the United States, but we also want this exhibit to help involve museums in generating conversations, catalyzing civic conversations about how we make our cities more livable, healthier for more people. And our participation in today's workshop is an opportunity for this museum to model the kinds of activities we'd like to see museums engage in as the Great Cities exhibit tours the country. I'm also pleased to have us participating today because the Science Museum in Minnesota is a member of the St. Paul EcoDistrict. And we're excited about the opportunity to help create a great idea and make it even stronger. And a number of you in the room are probably wondering, what is the St. Paul EcoDistrict? Well, to answer that question, I'm going to introduce Nina Axelson, the Vice President for Public Relations for Evergreen Energy, because the St. Paul EcoDistrict was her idea, and she's the one who has nudged it, coaxed it into existence. So please give a warm welcome to Nina.
Thank you, Pat. I wish my dad was in the room so that he could know that other people over-brag for me too. It's not just him. I appreciate those comments, Pat, that really what we're doing today, what we're launching today, and what we're talking about today is all about partnership. And so you're going to hear a lot of names, you're going to hear a lot of organizations, and it's because we want to honor all the work that's gone into getting us to today. So let's start something really simple. What is an eco-district, right? We didn't just make up this term. It's actually part of a nationwide movement to create different types of spaces. And really it's a focus on sustainability. So how do cities create better spaces that are sustainable to live, work, and play? That's it. It's a really basic concept. So we had to do it a little different because we're St. Paul, and we had to make it our own. So we wanted to look at this from a different angle. And part of it was already here. So the Science Museum of Minnesota, a long-standing piece of St. Paul, the St. Paul River Center, Xcel Energy Center, St. Paul Public Libraries with the George Latimer Central Library, and District Energy St. Paul, right out your window there, We've all been working and living and putting things together here for many years, and that's actually what built the EcoDistrict. So what's part of what we have here is 7 solar installations, district heating and district cooling, combined heat and power, biomass, composting like we've never seen in other large facilities, recycling, energy efficiency, use of wind source. There's just sustainability effort after sustainability effort and technology innovation after technology innovation. And it's all within just a handful of blocks. So if you didn't come in feeling proud of what St. Paul does, that alone should make you feel just tremendous about what we're doing here. So these programs all came together, and so we decided we should give it a name, make it a thing. So it is the St. Paul EcoDistrict. Well, that's enough to tell the story to your friend, your neighbor, your colleague, but we wanted to take it a little bit further. So we knew we had something special, so we said, let's start it with a website. So as of right now, I hope you don't all turn away from me, but you could go to your phone and check out stpaulEcoDistrict.com. There are little business cards on your table and other places where you can take note of the web platform and share it. Wonderful instructions out there if you want to tweet at #MyEcoDistrict. So this is a start. This is a place for us to storytell. The City of St. Paul and all of these partners have been doing sustainability programming and sustainability efforts for years. This is a way for us to take that story out to a different audience and brag a little bit about what we're doing here. Not over brag, because we're still St. Paul, but really it's important that we let people know what we have here. For those of you who don't know, we also do tours at District Energy, the River Center, Xcel Energy Center, the Science Museum. They bring people in, right? This is part of why Visit St. Paul really cares about this, is because it draws people in. Well, we don't always have time to get all those folks through the facility and give them the background tour, but we're missing out on that ability to educate. So that's what this platform is really about, and that's one of the things that makes this different than any other eco-district in the United States. So as you're browsing that space, you'll find out, how do I learn more about solar photovoltaic? How do I learn more about combined heat and power? I bet everybody's going to go home and learn more about combined heat and power. It's very exciting, I promise. Right, Darren? Yes, it is. Okay, good. So that's one piece of it, but it's only a web platform. So we want this to start as the beginning. We've already done some work with some of the schools, St. Paul Public Schools and Central High School, and we've been out talking to people, and what we realize is they need it to be just a little bit more. So we need to push this into the future a little bit and say, what would come next? What we hear a lot is it has to be interactive. So the idea of a living lab, the idea of people being able to understand what we're doing here beyond just a website or having a chat with one of our EcoDistrict partners is really important. So we're really hoping that through additional partnerships, people who have already expressed interest, we can take this to a next level with education curriculum, with interactive things. I keep saying, well, what if the bikes that are in the Science Museum made their way out to the plaza? Wouldn't that be a fun way to experience this space in a different manner? So I'm oversharing a little bit about what I want in my eco-district, and of course that's what we're asking everybody else to do in their day. But the pieces of sustainability and education, that's what I want in my eco-district, but it's also what makes this eco-district a little bit better and a little bit different than any other eco-district in the country. So as I think about future planning, that's the other part of today. So if you haven't figured this out yet from the rest of the invitation, there's 10 other projects that are actually intersecting within the eco-district space here in downtown St. Paul. And we're basically defining that from Rice Park to the river and from Market Street to West 7th. It doesn't feel like that much, but including our project, that's 11 projects that are all converging in this space at this time. And then we think that's really exciting. It shows the leadership that we have from the county, from the city, from private business, and years of planning that come before what's happening right now. It's not like they all just started yesterday. So this shows great opportunity for us to do a little bit more. And today will be about what do they have in common? How can we make all the projects better by having them work together? How can we encourage all of them to bring a little sustainability into their projects if they aren't already? And we think that that's a really important part of this. The other thing that is common in all of these projects is that they involve the City of St. Paul. So clearly because they're here, but also because we know that the City of St. Paul has made major investments in bringing new vitality, new opportunity into the city. It's all around us. It's not just in the eco-district, but it feels very present here, partially because of the construction. You know that there's growth and change, but also because we hear about all these awesome projects that are coming together. And we know that Mayor Chris Coleman has played a large part in bringing a lot of these projects to fruition and is here to make sure that they are led to their next great success. And he's also been a great advocate for both education and sustainability, and we've been able to hear that from him over the years. So it's perfect to have him here with us today to talk about what this means to the city and to be able to share a little bit more about how he sees our eco-district. Mayor Coleman?
Morning, everyone. See, last time I was here, it was like a month ago, we had a bunch of kids from Central High School to talk about the EcoDistrict and take a tour, and it was rainy that day too, so I don't know if that's the nature of tours of the EcoDistrict or if it's just we shouldn't complain about having rain given what's going on in other parts of this country, so we'll take that. Thanks to the Science Museum and District Energy for helping us be a part of today. I was here a couple of months ago, or it was almost a year ago. When was that, Patrick? That the administrator of the EPA was here to tour their heat recovery recapture system. And it was great to be able to brag to a leader across the country about what we're doing here in the city of St. Paul. I do believe there's a lot of great things that are happening here. Nina mentioned a lot of the different projects, but it's ultimately this is about branding. What this area is all about and all of the efforts. Just giving it a name helps. For some reason, I was thinking about, for those of us that were back watching Saturday Night Live in the late 70s and 80s. Do you remember Al Franken had the great, he said that 70s were the me decade, and he declared that the 80s were the Al Franken decade. Why? Because he thought of it first. Well, we didn't necessarily think about calling something an eco-district first. But we are going to brand this area because we already have so much energy around the work that we're doing. Obviously, what District Energy is doing, what the Science Museum is doing, the incredible work over at the River Center XL Energy Complex. It is amazing. And a couple of months ago, we were all standing with the commissioner of the NHL and the head of the Wild and the folks that run the facility over there, accepting awards as I always get this kind of wrong, but we're like the only facility in the world that has two major designations for the work that we're doing. 3 major designations. Thanks, Ann Hunt is always there to make sure that I get it right. But that was an interesting journey too, to get all of those recognitions for the environmental quality and sustainability efforts around that facility. Because when we were first engaged in that, and I've told Craig Leopold the story, or reminded him of the story, and he kind of winces a little bit. But I got a call one day, and he's like, "Could you just ask that Ann Hunt to back off a little bit? I mean, we're willing to do this stuff, but it's really, that's a lot to be done." So he had come full circle by the time we stood there and received these awards, and had the commissioner of the NHL bragging about the recycling, and the recapturing of food waste and all of those things. But I think it's just indicative of how we have to continue to push on these things. We can't just sit there and say, this is going to be difficult, and we'll go part way, but we don't want to go all the way. We're at a point in the history of this planet that we can't afford to go part way. We can't afford to be partially eco-friendly. We can't have kind of reduce emissions a little bit. We have to make gigantic strides forward, because the reality of it is we are in deep trouble. I was thinking about, here we are at the Science Museum of Minnesota, and then realizing that there are probably a lot of members of Congress that would call this Fantasy Island. How we can have to still be even having the conversation as to whether climate change is real is beyond me. And going into a presidential election and having that, people debating whether the science of climate change is real, it's so mind-boggling to me. It's hard to believe. When we were here with Administrator McCarthy, the state climatologist Mark Seeley was here and answering some questions, and I said, "Mark, when do you first attribute the changes that we're seeing in weather patterns to global warming and climate change?" And he said it was 1991, right about there. And I said, "Thank God." He said, "Well, why?" I said, "Because I thought my daughter was born in October of '91, and I thought it was her fault." But here she is, graduating from college this weekend, and 23 years later, even after noticeable changes in weather patterns, we're still having these conversations. But the strength and the reason why I'm optimistic is because of things like the EcoDistrict, because of the efforts of places like the St. Paul Hotel that have a massive composting process. This week, I think, is it today, that they'll be selling dirt that they have composted from their facility, and really setting the tone for other hotels in this region and quite frankly across the country as to what you can do. That is incredible leadership on their part. The photovoltaic cells that we have on the River Center parking ramp, the partnership that we formed using some of the federal jobs dollars to create the solar installation on top of the River Center. It's an example of leadership and how we as local communities are ultimately going to solve this problem. The reality, I've gotten to the point where I thought, the presidential debate is almost irrelevant. Because if we're looking to Washington for leadership and support on this, it's not going to come anytime soon. The cavalry is not coming to rescue us here. The fact of the matter is, it is going to be local initiatives. It is going to be the St. Paul EcoDistrict. It is going to be what Minneapolis is doing. It is going to be all those cities, as president of the National League of Cities, getting together with leadership from across this country and looking city by city by city what they're doing to make a significant difference in the environment, a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And quite frankly, that's where it has to come from anyways. When 60 to 80% of all CO2 emissions are coming from cities, where the majority of people are living in cities for the first time, it has to come from leadership. And it's so good to see the strength of local leadership, not just not political leadership, although that's important. State leadership. I know Representative Mahoney is here. Thank you for joining us. The state leadership. This is important. And he's taking notes even. It's a grocery list, Darren. He's writing a grocery list. He just, quite frankly, this time of year, you're looking for any excuse to get out of the Capitol. So continue to push us on this. And I think one of the things, again, going back to the branding of the EcoDistrict, is I think that not only will the fact that we have declared this as such lead to other efforts and other people that want to be a part of it, and other people looking, some additional kind of, instead of 11 projects, make that 22 projects in the EcoDistrict. Thinking about the redevelopment over on the Seven Corners Gateway site. How can that be a part of what we're doing here? How can that be? Thinking about the river walk, the river balcony that we want to, we're beginning to have conversations. Imagine being able to walk from here down all the way to the Custom House or beyond, where we just broke ground, although we didn't break anything yesterday. But we're going to have 200 new units of apartments in that building, and tie all of those things together. But ultimately, I think that is also going to drive economic development, because developers, residents, businesses all want to be able to say that they're part of this effort. And in so many ways, business leadership is well ahead of political leadership on some of these things, because they know when they're going off to sell to their clients, they want to be able to tell their clients that they're eco-friendly, that they're in a green building, that they're taking steps. So all of these things, by virtue of acknowledging what we have done already, I think will propel us forward into the future to do even more. And I think that's the exciting thing about what's happening here today. So as was mentioned, you can follow the St. Paul EcoDistrict. I think it's at EcoDistrict STP if you want to follow that. They followed me yesterday. I was so impressed that St. Paul EcoDistrict followed me. But then so did Morelli's Liquor Store, and I'm not sure what that means. We're all in this together. I think that's what that means. So thank you for being here, and great placemaking to the Riverfront Corporation. This has been a great week, and we celebrate tonight at the Riverfront Dinner, and once again, we continue to propel St. Paul forward. Thanks.
Thank you for that introduction, Mayor. So George Latimer once said, you want to be close enough to the mic that you're there before the applause runs out. And he said, the longer I get away from being mayor, the closer I have to get to the microphone. So I'm Patrick Sieb, Executive Director of St. Paul Riverfront Corporation, and you know, this mayor is a get-it-done mayor, and I can tell you just one example. I asked 3 mayors to get Ann Hunt to back off, and only it took this one to figure out we don't want Ann Hunt backing off. Hats off to Ann Hunt. Let's acknowledge. This has been an extraordinary week. Pat Hamilton mentioned yesterday we had a brilliant, gorgeous, sunny day as we did our work in Minneapolis, and we had incredible turnout, and I thought we might attribute that to the weather, but I actually think it's about branding. In Minneapolis yesterday afternoon, they had 2 events, and one was a youth workshop, so it was young people getting together, and the other one they branded an adult workshop. And man, you should have seen the turnout for the adult workshop. We have people who have come for this meeting from the West Metro. We have people who today are here from the Bay Area. But the person who's come the furthest is a gentleman by the name of Lee Roberts, who is here from the University of Tasmania to study the impact of bike infrastructure on city development. So where are you, Lee? From Tasmania. This residency concept is really all about bringing people together to think differently about the future of our cities. And we are so fortunate to have had support over the years. And this year, I want to acknowledge our sponsors who have helped provide the resources to organize this initiative. We have representatives here from Knight Foundation, from McKnight Foundation, from Blue Cross Blue Shield, Central Corridor Funders Collaborative, and of course the Science Museum and the Institute on the Environment. But I especially want to acknowledge our presenting sponsor, Health East. And John Swanholm and other members of Health East are here. John was one of the first people to raise his hand as we said, we're thinking about this idea of having a civic conversation about the intersection between place and health. And he said, you know, Health East is really trying to figure out how do we pivot in this 21st century? How does a system that has been largely biased as an acute care end-of-life system externalize and become really more part of the fabric of the community? And he said, this would be perfect for us to learn with you and to support this effort. So please join me in thanking Health East. It should really come as no surprise that Health East would step up, as this idea of place and health is in their DNA. It was 115 years ago, nearly today, that the city's public health commissioner, former surgeon and physician at St. Joe's Hospital, stood on this very site. He had walked from his home in Irvin Park and stood here because this was the home of the county morgue. And after attending to one too many deaths caused by things that could not be treated by surgery or medicine, but instead by how we build our cities, mortgaged his home in Irvin Park, purchased a spit of land in the middle of the river, put in swimming beaches, bathhouses, and a child care center, and donated it to the city of St. Paul, asking that it be named after the first school teacher in St. Paul, Harriet Bishop, and said that it forever would be a place for people to have access to fresh air and hygiene and clean water and social connection. He was part of an international movement where public health and architects and city planners and elected officials understood we had to change cities if we wanted to change people's health. And in 4 years, in 4 decades, in one generation, human life expectancy grew more than in the previous 8,000 generations. We are faced with an opportunity no less significant as we, as 21st century city builders, think about the impact of this place on people's health, on our young people, on our aging population. And this is a conversation that has been bubbling over time. And what we have found is that if we bring together the best scientists, the best placemakers, the best artists, the best engineers, the best elected officials, that we can rethink our cities. And that's really what this exercise has been all week long. And we indeed have brought together to us, to our communities, a scientist who's become a practitioner, a scientist who's become an urban practitioner, and urban practitioners who are scientists. And that's really been the opportunity for this conversation. And as we stand here in the EcoDistrict, the connection should be obvious. One way in which we build health is how we think about our sustainability, our resilience, the environment of our city. And that's why we are so fortunate to have this team now calling themselves the EcoDistrict leading that conversation.